Hi, let me start over. It looks like the mics were actually off. So this is Liz Butler from Friends of the Earth. We're going to get started. We have a lot to go over tonight on our efforts to fire Pruitt and really hold him accountable. We're going to start out talking about what's going on in the Trump administration on some other key issues, and then we're going to do a deep dive on Pruitt. We're really going to focus in on what are the scandals that he's involved in, what's the reaction from Congress, what do we need to do to really pressure them to take action, and what matters with the different members of Congress and how are we going to get them to take action. Then we're going to shift into a conversation about what have we been doing recently. Us and all of you and our allies have been doing a lot of work to really escalate around Pruitt, so we'll walk you through that and the impact that it's having. And then we're going to shift into some report backs from the field, hearing about some of the actions that people have been taking back home. I have a couple of questions, and then we're really going to do a deeper dive on what's coming up next week when Pruitt actually goes and testifies on Capitol Hill. And then finally, we're going to be looking at starting to do work around the Day of Action, which is happening on May 9th, which is Pruitt's birthday. So welcome tonight. And the first thing I wanted to talk about, all of us have been following this, is in the last week we've seen a ton of escalation on a couple of fronts coming from the administration. One is the threat to our democracy. So people probably heard that late last week there was a lot of escalation from the Trump administration about efforts to try and go after the special investigation. First, there was a ton of talk about them firing Robinstein and then using that to move Mueller out of his position. Friends of the Earth has joined about 500 organizations, part of a coalition that's really meant to hold the administration accountable and say that nobody's above the law, including the president. So if there is any action taken that really undermines the special investigation, we'll be helping call for demonstrations out in the streets for the day that happens. So we will make sure to let you know as soon as possible. If an action occurs that we need to really make sure that Congress hears loud and clear that they have to do something to stop the undermining of any investigations into the Trump administration or Trump himself. The other thing that people probably realize is that we actually dropped bombs. We actually dropped bombs in Syria late Friday night, which has a ton of people concerned about what that means for people on the ground and also what it means for Trump leaning into getting us in a war. Friends of the Earth has joined many people in opposing that action and being committed to standing up if there's further military action that happens. So those are kind of two things that have happened in the last couple of days, really, as things seem to unfold daily from this administration. So now we wanted to shift into, well, what's happening with Pruitt, which a ton has happened since the last time that we got on the phone. And I'm going to have Lucas walk you through what his scandals are, what we're seeing from Congress, some things around his other people in the EPA actually getting confirmed, and who we need to be targeting in Congress. Lucas?
Thanks, Liz. It's great to be on the phone with everyone tonight. So let's talk about Scott Pruitt, and let's talk about how we are progressing towards getting him fired, moving, honestly, more quickly than I thought we would. On that note, we're closer today to getting Pruitt fired than we have ever been, but there is still a long way to go. And I think that the view from the 1,000-foot level is that one of the most corrupt and dangerous people in the Trump administration, Scott Pruitt, is badly wounded after a series of corruption scandals, but we haven't gotten rid of him, and for the time being at least, he has survived and is probably going to stick around for at least, I would say, the next couple of weeks. Just to give you a quick timeline of how quickly this has escalated, it was revealed less than 3 weeks ago that he had rented a posh condo for a less than market value from the wife of an energy lobbyist, and that as administrator, he made regulatory decisions directly favorable to clients of that lobbyist while he was living in his wife's house. Not long after that, It was revealed that Pruitt used an obscure legal loophole to give political aides massive raises, even though the White House had specifically denied those raises and ordered him not to. And then he lied about it to Fox News and tried to throw his chief of staff under the bus for it. The excuses that we've heard from him so far don't even pass the smell test, and the ongoing investigations about that are probably going to continue to be very damaging to him. And I think just yesterday it was announced by the Government Accountability Office, which is an independent watchdog, that one of the more absurd acts of corruption that he ever committed was in fact illegal. He spent last year about $43,000 to have a soundproof phone booth installed in his office. He didn't want any career employees hearing any of the conversations he was having with big oil or other industry representatives, so he had a secure communication booth installed so that he could talk to whomever he pleased whenever he wanted to and not have to worry about actual public servants listening to him. It was determined that that was in violation of the law. We're still trying to piece together what that means and what the accountability mechanisms are, but what we know right now, thanks to this review from an independent watchdog, is that it was illegal. So this is a lot of stuff to happen in only 3 weeks, and it would be more than enough to end any normal EPA administrator under any normal president. But these aren't normal times, and Scott Pruitt isn't a normal EPA administrator. And I think one of the clearest signals of that is that Trump is backing him. And all it really took to make that happen was one public letter from a bunch of groups associated with the Koch brothers telling the president that Pruitt was only being targeted by environmentalists because he was so good at his job, and that he should stand with him. That came out just a week and a half ago, and Trump has been pretty much saying the same thing ever since. He stands by Scott Pruitt. So that is where the administration is that it's very unlikely that us banking on Trump doing the right thing and firing one of his favorite cabinet chiefs is going to happen. So we need to start looking at Congress. How do we create a critical mass of pressure in Congress to demand the removal of Scott Pruitt? And in the midst of all this scandal, we've actually been doing very, very well on that. And I think everyone who has picked up the phone or sent in an email or really done anything over the last couple of weeks should congratulate themselves, because we're off to a great start. I was actually getting my notes together for this call, and I was going to tell you that 108 members of Congress had called for Scott Pruitt to be removed. But just before the call, we heard about the 109th. Representative Evans in Pennsylvania. So everyone give yourselves a pat on the back. This is a really good start. But, and unfortunately there does have to be a but, it's not really enough. And I think, let me tell you why. Last week on Thursday afternoon, a man named Andrew Wheeler was confirmed to be the EPA's second in command, deputy administrator. He'll take over the EPA in case Pruitt were to, say, be fired or promoted to acting attorney general, because Trump has the authority to do that. Pruitt is, I think, as we might talk about, one of the people who Trump is looking at to replace Jeff Sessions if he desperately needs someone to end the Russia investigation. And Wheeler looks a lot like Pruitt. To be clear, we still want to see Scott Pruitt fired, and if he were to be fired, Andrew Wheeler would have a much harder time advancing his agenda if he were following in the wake of a disgraced administrator whose entire approach to the agency was discredited. But nevertheless, you would think the fact that this guy who used to be a coal lobbyist, who is in many ways as problematic as Pruitt, you would think that that would be a moment of maximum leverage, and that the Democrats would be in a really good position to, if not stop the nomination, make it much more difficult and much more scandalous. The thing is that isn't really what happened. They didn't do that. And not only did they fail to really make any kind of major racket over this nomination, they didn't even really manage to hold their entire caucus together. Senator Joe Donnelly from Indiana, Senator Heidi Heitkamp from North Dakota, and Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia all broke and voted to confirm Andrew Wheeler as deputy administrator. And he's going to be sworn in any day now. So that was a clear signal to us here at Friends of the Earth and to many of our partners that we aren't really doing enough to take this fight to Congress, that we're not really building enough pressure to create a congressional imperative to get rid of Scott Pruitt. And one of the things that we're looking at to increase that pressure over the next couple of weeks is seeing if we can get a member of Congress to introduce articles of impeachment against Scott Pruitt. The process works much the same as on a cabinet official like him as it does for a president. The House has the authority to introduce articles of impeachment around this, and we've had lawyers look into it, and we think our case is sound. He is a lawless administrator, and there are any number of examples that we can point to justify our case. So that's, I think, where I want to end it. But I think the big picture is that we've made considerable progress. The momentum is on our side, but that Pruitt, because of the fossil fuel industry being such a powerful constituency, is going to be hard to get rid of. And in order to succeed, we're really going to need to escalate pressure not just against Republicans who continue to stand by him, but also against Democrats because they aren't really pushing this fight hard enough or creating really nearly enough racket at all. So with that, I think I'm going to toss it back over to Liz, and we'll hear some more.
Thank you, Lucas. That was super helpful. As everyone can see, that on one aspect, we've all seen more escalation around Pruitt and his scandals than we've seen in a long time. And there's been a lot of pressure on Congress to take action. And really, you guys have to try that pressure, both pressure on the phone as well as for organizations around the country. I want to give you a sense of some of the things that have happened that's really been driving this pressure, and say to you that we need to not stop now, that we have to keep going. We have to keep going as soon as possible so we can keep the pressure up. So a couple of things that happened. One is nearly 100 organizations, environmental groups, social justice groups, human rights groups, consumer groups across the country have signed on to a sign-on letter really calling on Pruitt to be fired and even not only to be bad on environmental issues, but he's been bad on women's health when he was in Arkansas, that he's really been anti the LGBT community, and that he's displayed consistent racist behavior both on environmental issues as well as on other issues. So that's one big thing, and that's been both national groups as well as groups in states. Two, thousands of calls have gone into senators' offices across the country, and thousands of tweets have gone on Twitter where people have really been tweeting at their members of Congress and saying, you need to fire Pruitt. We now have a joint petition that is over 22 organizations across the country that have generated almost 200,000 signers calling for Congress to fire Pruitt. And it's not done yet because we're continuing to gather petition signatures. Both many of you are doing in-person petitioning out in the field as well as organizations that are pushing out to their bases digitally for people to sign the Pruitt petition. Next thing that's happened is we have actually had people starting in D.C. put up posters really talking about how corrupt he is. These posters went up all over Capitol Hill, and they got a ton of attention in social media and as well as in traditional media. There was days and days of stories that happened about these posters and how they were directly calling out that Pruitt was corrupt and that Congress wasn't taking action. And one thing about the posters is it was basically saying, if you want this corrupt $50 deal for your condo with the oil industry, call this number now. And the number went directly into the EPA. After they went up in D.C., we went and asked people out in the field if they'd be willing to put them up near congressional offices. And 1,900 of you raised your hand, and those packages are going out as we speak to make sure that people can actually get these posters up in communities and that members of Congress can see them at home. Now, the final two things is many of you have been meeting with congressional offices and asking them where they stand on whether or not they will support firing Pruitt. And then in a couple of instances, we've actually had people doing directly confronting in a public space members of Congress, including Republicans. A Friends of the Earth activist in South Carolina actually recorded Trey Gowdy saying things about how he didn't think that Pruitt was going to last long enough to come testify to his committee and that he didn't have a lot of tolerance for this stuff. Now, Trey Gowdy is a very prominent Republican who is actually fairly bad on his on investigations on the committee that he was on in the House of Representatives. It was quite shocking to have him admit that. And it got a lot of attention, showing that even Republicans are backing away from Scott Pruitt. So that's all what's happened just in the last couple of weeks, which is a ton. And the hope is that we can generate even more pressure so that we can actually make sure that Scott Pruitt gets fired by having Congress impeach him. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Brianna, who's going to talk about what's next and what's the pressure that we're going to keep creating coming up.
Thanks, Liz. So now I'm going to walk us through, as Liz said, the rest of the timeline this year, what's next, and how we will build power. So, we've been collecting petition signatures through tabling and canvassing, holding informational events, and more things. And we will continue to do this through May, especially right now, as this Sunday, April 22nd, is Earth Day. And so this really is the perfect time for us to make plans to get more petition signatures, as there are events happening this month that are really the perfect venue for collecting signatures and getting more folks involved. Another to note or date is next Thursday, April 26th. In D.C., Scott Pruitt will testify before the subcommittee on the environment within the Commerce and Energy Committee. And on this day, we really need our elected to know that we're holding them accountable and keeping the pressure on them. And on this day, we really want them to hear from us in the field and in their home states. Also, all these efforts will culminate with the National Day of Action on Scott Pruitt's birthday, which is May 9th, which is about 3 weeks from now. On this day, we'll deliver petition signatures to our senators' offices, and our birthday gift to Pruitt is we'll offer to fundraise to pay for his one-way ticket back home to Oklahoma for good. So just to keep that in mind, April 22nd, Earth Day, April 26th, Scott Pruitt is testifying before the subcommittee, and May 9th is the National Day of Action on Scott Pruitt's birthday. So this is the upcoming timeline. And now I'm going to share a little bit about our targets, Democrats and Republicans, and why it really matters right now to pressure them. So it's really great that over the last few weeks, there have been a bunch of members of Congress who've came out against Pruitt and who've said that Pruitt should quit, but we need them to go further. Right now, we want them to say that he should be fired and to take action. And so it's not just enough that Pruitt should just leave. We need Democrats to come out stronger, and we need Republicans to say that they're concerned, as this does have an impact. And so every member of the House and Senate has the responsibility to hold Pruitt accountable. A majority of our elected members of Congress, which includes Democrats, have said nothing about Scott Pruitt or his scandals. And so this really needs to change. So we must right now be increasing pressure on our targets. And there are three groups who we should be targeting. The first is we should be increasing pressure on Democrats. So every Democrat in Congress should support the removal of Scott Pruitt, full stop. Those of them that have not said anything must be pressured to speak up on the record, and those that have already gone public should be prepared to escalate their demands to contempt of Congress and impeachment, call for impeachment if necessary, or that is necessary. The second thing is we need to increase pressure on Republicans. Only 3 House Republicans so far have spoken out in favor of Pruitt's removal. And we need to zero in on the Senate. And so although, it's less likely for Republicans to call for Pruitt to be out, it's really incredibly valuable to capture on the record comments from Republicans who are being critical of Pruitt right now. And as we've seen with the bird dogging of Trey Gowdy a week ago, comments critical of Pruitt help amplify his scandals, and they give the impression of building momentum towards his firing. The third thing is increasing pressure on moderate Republicans in the Senate. So there hasn't been a single Republican in the Senate who has spoken out in favor of Scott Pruitt's firing. And so that must change. Pressure must be applied to either moderate Senate Republicans and Senate Republicans up for re-election, or both. And some possibilities of those folks are Senators Gardner, Heller, Flake, Corker, and Graham. And so now what I'm going to do is we're just going to switch gears and really have some volunteers share some highlights from the past few weeks of things that they've done. We also, realize that folks probably have some questions. So after this section, we'll have some time for questions. But first, we have some volunteers on the line who are ready to share about some actions from the past few weeks. And so let's see. I'm going to go to Kurt and Charlotte, if you could share with everyone.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, and what we've done so far is that we've organized and infiltration, I guess, is the wrong word, but we've organized a dialogue with Alma Adams, our local congresswoman. We have contacts in her office who are very willing to help us. And what's been planned in the future, we've started on the petitions. We've been doing the petitions online and that type of thing. We're still waiting for the package that's going out today so we can get the posters up. But we're planning a meetup at a local restaurant and coffee shop for this coming Tuesday to get organized for May the 9th. We've reached out, and I just got notification this afternoon that they're happy to partner with us. The North Carolina League of Conservation Voters are going to join us. I'm looking forward to an appointment with Alma Adams' office, so on May the 9th, we can have a press release where she's going, and she may be willing to sponsor a petition for impeachment. All right. There's a Facebook page being set up for the local area. We're also, I'm approaching the regional field organizer for the Catawba River Keepers, which is a very good environmental action group here in North Carolina. And I'm also in the process of reaching out to Native American indigenous people organizations here in North Carolina, because what the EPA is doing to their lands is very important. So basically what we're doing is we're trying to reach out, as you're doing with the petition, with the number of groups on the petition, to get everybody involved in the May 9th demonstration, and not only in Charlotte, but we're going to reach out all over the state too.
Well, great.
That's where we're at this point.
Thank you, Kurt. Thank you so much for sharing what you've done and what you're planning to do. So let's see. I want to go to, So now I'm going to go to, let's see, Doreen in New York. Could you share briefly?
Oh, sure. Hi, this is Doreen. I'm in upstate New York, so there's several organizations up here, including the Sierra Club, but that are fairly active and certainly against Scott Pruitt. So what I was doing is that they had the climate march up in our area in Albany, and there were several congressmen there, and I think I got quite a few signatures. Everybody was very user-friendly, of course, at that march, so it was very easy to do. So I think my plan is, of course, we're having the Governor Cuomo Walk the Talk march this coming Monday. And, of course, there's several smaller things going on during Earth Day, on Saturday, but not as much going on in upstate New York as there would be down in New York City or some of the larger cities. So I think I'm going to concentrate on the Cuomo March because there's going to be people bust in to that, trying to get Governor Cuomo to do things more aggressively, really, with the climate, so that I will take the petitions there. And then the other thing I'm planning is going to the University of Albany and several other small colleges in the area and trying to get signatures on the petitions there. Our Congressman Tonko is already on board. He sent us a letter, and he is on board, and he is definitely somebody who has always supported the environment and the EPA. So I would think that he would be on board with getting Pruitt to resign. Whether he would sponsor a bill, I don't know, but he's certainly someone that we would be talking to about that.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. No, that's fine. I don't know where the senators are at, at this point, but, generally, I mean, our Democratic senators are usually very supportive of this, but whether they're going to be willing to do anything more aggressively, I don't know.
Thank you, Doreen.
Okay.
Really appreciate you sharing so much. Let's see. So I want to keep it moving. I want to go to Jackie in Maryland. If you could share about your lobby visit with Senator Cardin's office.
Okay. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Can everyone else hear me too? Okay.
Yes.
I didn't know how this worked. Okay. Thanks, Brianna. Nice to talk to you. Well, Brianna called me on the spur of the moment to go down to Capitol Hill. I live in the D.C., Maryland area. And she and another girl named Vina had scheduled a meeting with Senator Ben Cardin, who is one of our state senators, and also Senator Van Hollen. But Vina and I met with Senator Cardin, I guess maybe it was a couple Wednesdays ago, and we talked to one of his legislative aides named Shannon, and we expressed, our concerns about the ethical violations that Pruitt had done up until that were being talked about at that point. And I think that I'm trying to get it, but I mean, also one of the really helpful things with preparing for this interview was the fact that Brianna sent me some great articles about what was actually happening with Maryland environmental budget cutbacks and stuff as a result of Scott Pruitt's actions and everything, and how it would impact some of the things that we have in our state because we're located close to D.C. We have NASA and Goddard. We have, NIH. We have all these other people that were being cut, organizations that do science or medical research and things like that depend on government funding. And some of them were being cut out, some of the really important programs were being cut back. So that was one of the things that we talked to, in addition to talking about the need to fire him over all the illegal things that he's doing. We wanted to also emphasize the fact that he is affecting, what kind of programs are going to get, that between that and the funding bill that Trump passed, this would affect how many things in the states would be getting, in our state especially, would be receiving, funding, physical funding for those things, and that included satellite missions that Goddard was putting up to study plankton and aerosol, cloud cover, and things like that, and as well as carbon. And this was like a special Earth satellite that was going to study the health of the oceans and stuff. And then they had another program called Discover, which monitors the changes in the Earth's ozone and actually how much sunlight was reflected back off of the planet into outer space. And the Trump budget was eliminating a lot of these things, and especially they were concerned about the satellites. But I guess that and that in the Chesapeake Bay, which is a big part of Maryland because it takes up a large portion of the eastern part of the state. So they were concerned that a lot of funding was being cut back on programs that would reduce the runoff of fertilizers and things like nitrogen and phosphorus into the bay that would pollute the bay. And as I mentioned, I don't know everything and all the details about how this worked out in the end, but it was one of the things that you didn't hear about so much in the news. So we were talking about that with Shannon and another aide that was working with her, who was a legislative assistant. Well, she was a legislative assistant, and he was a law intern. And he was. They were both listening. They were very attentive, and I could tell that they were, they were all very knowledgeable about all of these things that Pruitt is doing. And they did say that they were just going to, that probably Senator Cardin would take a little bit of a wait-and-see attitude. But the last email communication that Vina sent to them, she emphasized, more about all the reasons why we need to go ahead and have Senator Cardin as well as other senators speak out about Pruitt. So she was urging them to go ahead and have him speak out about it. I don't know if they're sort of waiting to see how the campaign is going to be affected or affect people. But so far I've seen a lot of things on social media also, and I've shared the online petition from the NRDC with a lot of people everywhere I can on social media. And so that's what we are. We're just I'm trying to still get petition signers myself. That's the next thing that I'm working on. But I think we had a successful visit with Senator Cardin's office, and they are very concerned, and I'm sure they'd love to see Pruitt be fired. So they.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Jackie, for sharing.
Sure.
Yeah, really appreciate it. So now we're going to just switch gears and go to questions, because we see that there are some folks who have posed some questions in the chat or who may have some questions so far. So what I'll do is if you have a question, you can press 1 on your phone, and I'll just take a couple of questions in order, or I'll just take a couple and then we'll address them all at once. So the first question I see is from Susan, who is participating in an Earth Day event and would like to collect signatures. And so is there a document available online that I can use? Next question, let's see. I'll go to Matt in California. If you could just give your question quickly.
Oh, yeah. I was wondering if you could also provide us a list of the senators on the subcommittee that we need to contact for Pruitt's meeting.
Great.
Yes, we can totally do that. And it's actually a House of Representatives hearing as opposed to a Senate hearing. But we'll send around the information about who's on the committee.
Let's see. Karen has Karen Coben in New York.
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I was just wondering if you are having any ties with the Environmental Working Group in Washington. They just sent out an email today, about Monsanto and big agriculture, and they're all in bed with Pruitt because they just came out with their 2018, Dirty Dozen and Clean 15 list, and they're saying it's all propaganda, so they're all in bed together that it's all a hoax and don't listen to what EWG has to say.
Oh, thanks for your question, Karen. So could we just, address Karen's question? And then I think Yeah.
So two things. One is I posted this in the chat around Susan's question. Yes, we will totally send you out petitions if anyone else needs them. They should let us know. We have some guidance on petitioning that we went over on our last call. We'll make sure that everybody can get them in their hands. We can also send you physical petitions if you don't have a way of printing them out. And then two, on the question on environmental working group, yes, many of us are collaborating in this moment and really trying to make sure that Pruitt gets held accountable. And EWG is part of the folks that Friends of the Earth is working with on trying to hold Pruitt accountable. So this is a moment where we're all kind of working together in different ways and putting pressure from different aspects to really make sure that members of Congress are actually taking action.
Thank you, Liz. So for anyone else that had questions, if you have, you could just type them in the chat and we can respond to those. And so now I'm going to pass it over to Jenny.
Hey, thanks, Bree. So hey everyone, my name is Jenny. I'm the regional organizer that works with folks in the Northeast. And I wanted to just talk a little bit more about the specific action coming up most soon, the April 26th action, where basically we're going to just be adding pressure, to the moment where Pruitt is going to be getting a lot of pressure already from members of Congress in D.C. because he's going to be testifying in Congress, and that is going to be a big moment to really capitalize on in terms of all eyes are going to be on him, and all of your member of Congress and senators are going to be thinking about all the scandals that Pruitt's involved in, and just the pressure to do something about this corruption scandal that Pruitt is involved in, and building on the moment to really force him to resign, and what we're calling for to really, get him to be fired or to just start the process of impeachment. This is a really big moment to build off of. So, the idea is this has been building, for the last few weeks, and really Trump could have fired Pruitt a while, when all the news were coming out, but he didn't. He chose to support him instead. So we really just need to keep building on, keep the pressure up, and Trump's not going to do it on his own. Pruitt is probably not going to choose to resign on his own. So really why we're asking members of Congress to take some more drastic step and to start the process of impeachment for Pruitt is because that's really, what we think is going to really force him to leave because he won't do it on his own. Or, not force him to leave, but really to just get out of office. So April 26th, we are asking folks to go to their member of Congress's office in district, and to just really draw attention to this moment where Pruitt's going to be testifying by asking, your member of Congress at their office to go beyond just calling for him to resign, because again, he's not going to do it willfully, and call for impeachment, start the impeachment process. Like Doreen in New York said, New York representatives, they may be with us in terms of calling for him to resign, but that's not enough. We need them to take leadership, especially Senator Schumer as minority leader, to go beyond calling for him to resign and just start the impeachment process. So we're asking folks to just do some kind of visibility action, or it can be, whatever action you want to come up with. We're going to, after I explain this, we're actually going to break it out to let all of you share and brainstorm what ideas you have for how to apply pressure to a member of Congress to get them to, support impeaching Pruitt and not just asking him to resign in a minute. But so basically ideas for how to go about just giving her all in terms of upping the pressure on April 26th is you could, do tweeting. Everyone could, you could recruit a bunch of folks to tweet at your member of Congress calling for them to support impeaching Pruitt. You could make a bunch of signs saying, talk is not enough. Calling from, we need you to move forward on impeachment. Something more flashy than that on a sign. But the idea is we need to just consistently be keeping up the pressure on April 26th, on May 9th. Once is not enough. So, and there's going to be so much news attention around this date as well. So we really need to capitalize on that. I'm going to open it up to brainstorming. What ideas do you all have for how to, really keep the heat on or increase the heat on your member of Congress if they need it, even if they've called for resigning again, that's not enough. So what ideas do you all have for what you could do, at your member of Congress's office? And we're actually going to have, specific, sample flyers that, call for impeachment or something that we're going to be sending you all to use for that day. But besides that, it does depend on your member of Congress what kind of action you do. So, I want to open up to the floor for all of you to share your ideas. So press 1 on your phone if you want to share. And because we're, trying to keep things short and we got to speed things up, just make sure everyone gets to share. I'm going to ask that everyone not share for more than a minute. So press 1 on your phones now if you have any ideas for what to do for our April 26th action when Ms. Pruitt is testifying. Okay, so let's see. So far I have, I'm going to go with Karen in New York. And again, press 1 if, you have questions or if you have ideas for what to do for action. Okay, Karen, you're unmuted.
Yeah, I was wondering, is there a way that you could send out, unless it's somewhere that I don't know about yet, all of the, in a bullet fashion form, nice and pithy and concise, everything that's illegal or scandalous about Pruitt, so that when I go to to the Schumer and folks, it's all there, all listed bullet form.
Yes, so that we actually have like a one-pager that says 5 reasons to fire, why Pruitt should be fired, and that has a lot of good of the main points, like for the corruption he's involved in. So we have that in our toolkit, and we'll send that out after the call.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Karen. All right, so again, press 1 on your phone for, ideas for what to do for this April 26th action. I'm going to go with, let's see, A. Herbert in California. You're unmuted.
Yes, hi. This is Elena Bear, and thank you for doing this today. I just have a general question. I don't have an answer, but being that this is the future of our youth, if there are any projects that involve young people to really also speak to this, because even if they can't vote yet, it right to the future. And that's the question. Thank you so much for
Elena. You were breaking up a little bit. I think I got the gist. Is what can young people do if they can't vote yet? Is that what the question was?
Yeah. If there's anyone also organizing with young children, with young people that can vote or that are about to vote, that if there can be a project with schools and other things or other groups, I don't know. This again.
Okay. Yeah, I think I got the gist. All right. Yes. So there's a project for folks, that aren't eligible to vote anytime soon. And yeah, basically, even if you can't vote, it's still really imperative that, everyone of all ages go talk to a member of Congress, because they're still a constituent and still, members of Congress represent them. And especially for the young people that are eligible to vote in 2018, definitely, they should be leading, lots of young people are already leading the advocacy work that's been going on and the resistance movement work. And we do have trainings that we're doing locally. That's a great way of getting especially young folks involved that haven't maybe done this kind of work before. So look out for trainings that we have coming up. And yeah, we can talk more offline about specific community projects. But basically having them get involved in this activism work by joining the lobby meetings and these rallies, outside of senators' offices is a great idea. And let's see, anyone else that wants to share? Matt Richardson in California.
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, yeah, thank you for organizing this call. I'm really interested. I think going and talking to your senator at your legislator's office with a group of people is one of the most effective ways. And I think effective ways to get across to them. And I think just having the conversation, you don't need to be confrontational, but just like you said, asking them, what will it take to move from not liking Pruitt to impeach and see what they say. I think it's one of the nicest, simplest ways to do it. I also wanted to ask you, I know there's a lot of #FirePruitt Twitter tweets going out. How effective do you think that is, and should we keep doing that?
Jenny, I can take a second.
Yeah, sure.
So here's what I would say is I think that it can be very effective to be organizing on Twitter, but it's much more effective. It's not the only thing we're doing, right? Like it's right now the important thing is that when members of Congress are showing up in public places like Trey Gowdy, that people are asking them what they're going to do about this, that when they go to log in on Twitter or their staff does, they're seeing all sorts of tweets. When they walk into their office, they're hearing the phones ring and they're seeing that those phone calls are about firing Pruitt. That on both next week on the day of the hearing in D.C. and out in the community, that people are showing up at their office and saying, what are you going to do to hold Pruitt accountable? And then on Pruitt's birthday, that the same thing's happening. So I think it can be very effective if it's part of a comprehensive effort to pressure them to take action.
Okay, that's great. One last thing. Should we be meeting with our legislators before the 26th meeting or on the 26th?
Maybe if you're going to meet with them, I would meet with them before. I think on the 26th, it's about showing up at their office and flyering and really demanding that they call for impeachment. It's slightly, one is like a sit-down meeting and the other is more of the we're going to keep coming back until you take action.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Matt. And we have a couple more minutes left, maybe for one or two more people to share. So I'm going to go with Fran Fulton in Pennsylvania. Fran, you're unmuted.
Hi. Thanks a lot. Regarding May 9th, you mentioned some activities for Scott Pruitt's birthday. I don't know if you have anything in mind, but one of another activist organization that I am with, what we sometimes will do on someone's birthday is flood them with birthday cards and tell them that the best present they can give the public, is for them to resign. Or flood them with a birthday card that says, something like, I, Scott Pruitt, hereby resign my position, as administrator or secretary, whatever the exact title is, of the EPA. Things like that. If people can go right directly to the EPA if they live in that area. We found that to be just kind of a little different kind of thing than just always sending a fax or
Yeah, thanks, Fran, for that question. And actually, we're going to go into more detail on the plan for May 9th in a minute, and actually right now. So, and sorry everyone else that wanted to share. But yeah, we'll go into that right now, Fran. But yeah, so for the folks that weren't able to share, I saw that in this last minute we got a lot of more people. So you feel free to share in the chat your ideas, and then also you can email us at organize@foe.org your ideas. Okay, so I'm going to hand it off to Britton.
Hi everyone, this is Britton, organizer and working in the Southeast primarily. So we're just going to review some of the ideas that were just presented and kind of talk about who's interested in doing what and what do we need to make this happen in terms of what kind of follow-up would y'all like, any more resources or tools that are needed. And so first I'll just start by kind of reviewing some of the ideas that were just presented. So the first idea tool that is needed is a list of Scott Pruitt's scandals, which we have, and we are going to send that out to everybody, as well as the petition. There was a question about how can we get your hands on the petition. We will send a copy of the petition in our toolkit to everybody that is on the call. And please, if there's anything else that we can add to that toolkit, don't hesitate to let us know. Another idea was working with young folks. That idea wasn't fully fleshed out, but if you're interested in doing any work with young people, can you go ahead and press 4 on your phone, and we can capture that and follow up with you to kind of flesh out those ideas. If you're interested in visiting a member of Congress, which was an idea brought up by Matt, and asking them basically what would it take for you to move to impeach Scott Pruitt. I think that's a really good idea. So if you're interested in visiting your member of Congress on April 26th, which is next week, so we'll have to move fast on that. We're here to help. Press 3 on your phone, and we'll convene a call with you to kind of get that in motion. So press 3 on your phone if you want to visit a member of Congress, and press 4 on your phone if you are interested in fleshing out some ideas on how to engage young people next week for April 26th. And another idea, which is more to do with May 9th, which we can move into that now. We were wondering who on this call would be interested in convening or being a part of a working group that will meet fairly soon over the phone to flesh out ideas for our May 9th Day of Action. May 9th is Scott Pruitt's birthday, so Fran's, excuse my voice, cracking up. Fran's idea of sending birthday cards, I think, is fantastic. That's just one of many ideas that we can, and kind of tactics and actions that we can employ on May 9th. We have a petition, which we all know we're all gathering signatures on this petition. You know, we have almost 200,000 signatures as of right now on our online petition. So we have all these signatures we need to deliver. If you're interested in joining a group to kind of think of some creative things to do on May 9th and some visibility actions and being part of a group to kind of flesh that out, if you could go ahead and press 1 on your phone, that would be awesome. And we'll convene a group pretty soon, like I said, on moving that forward. So just to review, if you are interested in joining a May 9th working group, which is our day of action, which is Scott Pruitt's birthday, where we'll be delivering all of our petition signatures and hopefully doing some press conferences and some visibility actions. If you're interested in joining a working group, press 1. Coming up next week for April 26th, which is when Scott Pruitt will be testifying in front of the hearing, and you're interested in visiting a member of Congress, press 3. And then if you're wanting to work with young people, press 4. With that, if there are any other resources that y'all need and you're able to plug them right into the chat, please do that. Or get in touch with one of the organizers when we reach out to you after this call. And I'm going to go ahead and throw it back over to
Brittany.
Yep.
But now I was going to make one suggestion. Even if you had already pressed 3 or 4 before, can you do it again? We're just trying to get all the data at once. So even if you think you already pressed 4 about working with youth, do it again. If you think you've already pressed 1 around joining the working group, do it again. And if you think you already pressed 3, do it again.
Great. And this will all be in, we have all of your information in email, so we'll send out this follow-up email just to double check anyone that we might have missed. Don't hesitate to raise your hand then as well. So I'll hand it back over to Liz.
Great. Thank you guys so much for joining this call today. As you can see, all the actions that you're taking out in the field are having a massive impact. Like, we really have gotten to the point where the president has had to defend his head of his EPA. He's had to justify why he still supports him. That's crazy, right? Like, that's not a normal question. That's only coming from the accountability and the pressure that members of Congress are feeling from all of you, and really lifting up the scandals that Pruitt has had and showing how corrupt he is. Now, given this administration, corruption happens all the time, so the fact that we've made it to the point where every member of the media and lots of members of Congress were saying, when is he going to go, is just a testimony to how much pressure we've created. So I want you guys to keep up the amazing work, and to end this call in advance of next week, when we're going to be out calling for members of Congress to actually fire Pruitt by impeaching Pruitt. When I take us all off mute, which I'm going to do in a second, I want everybody to scream, fire Pruitt. On the count of three, I want us to do fire Pruitt, impeach Pruitt. So fire Pruitt first, and then impeach Pruitt second. So on 1, 2, 3.
Fire Pruitt! Impeach Pruitt!
Excellent. Well, I hope everyone has a great night, and we look forward to talking to you more next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You are currently the only person in this conference.